did you guys get time to read the article?
I did, ma'am.
Okay, Nimra. Did you find it interesting?
Yes, like I think the thing that I personally agreed with was how the women are seen as objects within or presented as such. But what I found interesting was the analysis of how the male gaze does not want to see a liberated or empowered woman, and how they find it threatening to their own masculinity.
All right. So, uh, all right. So, do you remember the name of the film?
Ma'am, I didn't read. This was in the initial passages. Like it wasn't related to the film. It was related to how men view cinema and cinema posters and the other advertisement posters. Like it was the difference in their gazes.
Okay. All right. Uh, okay. Anybody else? Did anyone else try reading it? At least the first page or start of it?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay. And did you find it boring, interesting, or intriguing?
I was just stuck at a point where you say that there is a disparity between how religious fanatics see a woman on the billboard and how they don't find models, cinema billboard threatening, but they find advertisement billboard very threatening. So I wasn't able to understand what do you exactly mean by that. I was stuck there.
Okay.
Rest I saw the images जो नीचे लगी हुई थी, and I saw your picture as well. That was really nice.
All right. So they were very old pictures. So I needed pictures for the discussion, and I kept looking for, because I said we relate what we see in films to real life. So I needed pictures from pre and post 1979 era. I said 1979 is the date when motion picture ordinance was issued. So General Ziaul Haq issued the last motion picture ordinance. So I was, so I found, I was looking for pictures. So that's all I could find. So that's what I posted. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think anything else? Any other comment on visual pleasure or concept of visual pleasure? How do you understand by visual pleasure? Did you get time to look at least the first page of Laura Mulvey's original article on visual pleasure? No?
No, ma'am.
Okay, no problem. I think I have quoted a few things from Laura Mulvey's article. So what we'll do that during the lecture, we will continue referring to that. Okay, let me open Laura Mulvey's article as well. And I have it here with me right now, but I think I can share only one at a time. Okay. So I will open, let me share the original article first. I think it's here. And the original is here. Somehow I can't see which link is looking at Zoom. Okay. So here is the Mulvey's article. This is the original article by Laura Mulvey, and this article she wrote in 1977, and it's been republished many times, and it's included in Critical Tradition. That's a book by Tim Cook. I think you may have seen the book, especially those coming from DLA may have seen the book, because it focuses on a number of different things. Psychology's department may have it too, because it has a large section on psychoanalysis as well. So this
Miss, can you can you type out the name of the book in the chat so that we have it?
Okay. All right. The title of the book is Critical Tradition. Right? So that's what I mentioned. Okay, so Laura Mulvey says she's talking about visual pleasure in narrative cinema, and if you look at the start, it says that films create fascination, and they build upon fascination, and the fascination is already at work within the individual subject and social formations that have molded him. So I hope you understand, because she's talking about pre-existing pattern of female fascination, and she feels that these patterns of fascination are already built in. They are part of our psychological side. All humans actually believe in. They use certain ways of certain methods of female fascination, and she thinks that they are very much connected to the culture itself. So she's saying that pre-existing pattern of female fascination is already at work within the individual subject. And social formations, I believe you may have read about social formations, and I think you understand what I mean by pre-existing pattern of fascination. So even if we talk about that we are modern, or somebody's somebody's an orthodox, she is discussing pre-existing pattern of fascination, which may be at work because of the culture or the society, because societies do recommend or promote certain type of female images. So she thinks that these female images follow interpretations of sexual differences, like we say when we say that men should be tough and women should be soft. So this is the sexual, apart from sexual difference, this is another interpretation that is expected. And these interpretations form erotic ways of looking and spectacle. So this is what Laura Mulvey says here. So Laura Mulvey's theory is based on the concept of concepts that patriarchal society has constructed, and you may have heard of castration anxiety and castration theory. So she basically thinks that cinema creates phallocentric images or phallocentrism. So does everyone understand what phallocentric means or phallocentrism means, or should I explain it a bit? Does everyone understand phallocentric? Ji Zoha?
Ma'am, could you please explain it?
All right. All right. I think, yes, it is. It's not Freudian. It is Freudian, because Freud is the first one who started talking about it. And then also Lacanian. You may have heard of Lacan as well. And Lacan, Freud, Jung, and a few others have been writing about sexuality in life and sexuality in cinema. So phallocentric actually is about the male physical difference, right? So the male organ is, she's basing the theory on the male sexual difference or male organ. So the presence or absence of phallus is the one she's talking about, and she says that women do not have phallus, so that creates the image of castrated woman. She says it right here. Okay, so she thinks that cinema is actually based on, and the culture also, they are based on phallocentrism, and phallocentrism follows, is based on physical difference between male and female. So this, she is basically talking about the organ, and that organ becomes the linchpin for the system. Woman's lack produces, is interpreted, woman's lack is interpreted as absence, and male physical organ becomes the reason for his presence in all forms and practices of culture. And this is what the cinema reproduces. So she is saying that the paradox of phallocentrism is created by the patriarchy. And phallocentrism means male are powerful, and that power is based on their physical difference primarily, the presence of a certain organ that women do not have. So it creates the image of castrated women. Okay. So when she talks about male child, she thinks that male child steps into the father's shoes because he feels that he will be castrated like the mother if he does not step into the father's shoes. So it's the castration anxiety that makes men behave the way they behave, and it's that castration anxiety symbolizes symbolizes the absence of male sexual organ in the female. All right. So the phallus as a symbolic presence, and phallus as the symbolic absence is reinforced through cinema. Like it is represented, or it is believed that those who have phallus are strong, so they are men, and they are providers, they are in charge of goods in society, right? So they provide to the family, and women lack it, and women do not have it. So woman's lack is interpreted as absence of a certain body organ in the woman. Gee, is it clear now, or do I need to explain it further?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Okay, so basically,
Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Walaikum Assalam.
Ma'am, it's a woman in media class.
Ji, it is the class. Ji.
Okay.
Ji.
I am Alishba Khalid, ma'am.
Okay, Lishba, we just started discussing visual pleasure, and we are trying to discuss that visual pleasure is based on phallocentrism, which means the absence of a particular body organ in males and the absence of that same body organ in females.
Okay.
Okay, so the absence or presence of a particular body organ makes a man, and a woman, a woman. So woman, the image of castrated woman is created, right? So it only means that so woman lives in the symbolic, and the male child also grows up in that symbolic. It says the female form is in the symbolic order, okay? So this same theory is used in, I said earlier that when I was reading Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema by Laura Mulvey, I thought I was wondering if the theory exactly applies to Pakistan, because our culture is different. And Laura Mulvey based on her theory on, after seeing the films from Hollywood, and she thought that Hollywood films use women as objectify women for male pleasure in cinema. So she thought that male audience in the darkness of the theater develops a relationship with the female image, and that image is created because of castration anxiety, and the role that the male plays in society is based on the castration anxiety as well, because the male child feels that if he does not follow the rules of the father, he will be castrated like the mother. Okay, so this article actually focuses on how Pakistani cinema promotes the same gendered image, and how it promotes sexual differences between male and female through the films, and how women and men are supposed to believe that what are culturally appropriate behaviors for the two of them, right? So it says that Pakistani cinema developed as a gendered medium all these years. And as I said earlier, that motion picture ordinance was issued in 1979 by General Muhammad Ziaul Haq. So this article is actually taking 1979 date as the middle point, and it's comparing how visual pleasure was created in films before 1979, and how women's images were used in cinema for pleasure after 1979. It mentions here that it's looking at Laura Mulvey's theory, and apart from that, Derrida and Rosen and Camoli and Narboni's theories. Camoli and Narboni talk about social formations, and Derrida discusses the system of thought and knowledge that is already there in our minds. And Mulvey is focusing on visual pleasure. Apart from that, you'll find a few other things as well. But this film mostly discusses two films. In fact, it discusses more than two films, but two are discussed more. One is Kaidi from 1962, and the other is Chudiyan, sorry, not Chudiyan, it is Sher-e-Lahore from 2001. As I mentioned earlier, there other films are also discussed. For example, Paristan is discussed. If we get time, we will look at the clip of both of these films. But we will definitely look at scenes from Sher-e-Lahore and Kaidi to see how the women in both the films look different, and how what were the strategies of the protagonists in both the eras, right? So as I said, that we compare the images in films with the images of real women. So these, if we look at the images in the films before and after 1979, and if we look at real women before and after 1979, what we see that the cinema and real woman, woman in cinema and the real woman, they actually moved in opposite directions in both the eras. So what does that really mean? It only means that women were modern in before 1979. Real woman was modern, and woman in the film was very traditional. And after 1979, I think you may have heard of it, that people stopped going to cinemas because they felt Pakistan was not producing family films anymore, right? So after 1979, women in film were very liberal. You may have heard of rain dances and other things. So before 1979, women were not that liberal in films. But after 1979, we are seeing that women are free in films. And after 1979, because of Zia's Islamization, we saw an increase of abaya culture in Pakistani society. So this is all this article says, that before and after 1979, cinema and reality are just the opposite. Woman in cinema was different, and woman from the real woman in society. Okay. I think, Komal, you were talking about this paragraph here, right? I can understand that this paragraph is slightly complicated, but all it says that before and after 19th, did you ever see any billboard with ink on a woman's face?
Yes, ma'am. Advertisement billboards often have that ink
Okay.
on them.
All right. Do you think they still have ink on a woman's face because this is an old phenomenon. It was happening throughout 1990s and in the first decade of the new millennium. So I thought most of you are quite younger. So I'm not sure. So when did you see a billboard like this?
Ma'am,
I
I've seen
haven't.
it around. Sorry, you can speak. I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem. When did you see that
So
billboard?
right. Ma'am, are
Okay.
you asking me?
Gigi, I'm asking all of you, when did you last see a billboard with ink on a woman's face?
I think I'd like to change the word from billboard to a poster maybe. Okay, last time we were campaigning for Aurat March and there was uh, ink on the posters उसके बाद तो
Okay, was
सिनेमा
that
को मुझे नहीं
was
जी
that in 2019 or 2020?
2019 2020 both
This year, ma'am, it was literally seen this year.
पिछले साल भी था
आप कह रही थी which औरत march was it? Was it in 2019 or 2020?
Ma'am, it was this
मैं
year.
दोनों की बात कर रही हूँ जब मुझे तो दोनों में ही नजर आए थे पता नहीं कि तो कौन सा लेकिन I think I have seen both.
Yes, ma'am, it was in both of the Aurat marches.
All right. So yes, I understand. It can still happen, and but it was happening a lot during the 1990s and the first decade of the new millennium. Okay. So this article actually starts with that incident. Because it says that mostly religious groups or religious adherents were throwing ink on women's faces on billboards, but they were not damaging cinema billboards. So it is just trying to understand why not cinema billboards and why just attack uh, advertisement billboards. So can you can you try explaining what could be the reason? Because what I have written here is the reason that I understood. I mean, there was no other reason that I could that made sense to me, except that advertising represented a modern woman, and cinema did not have a very modern woman as such. So, which does not mean that cinema did not have women, modern women, because you have all kind of character in films. It only means that women who join advertising industry are groomed at a certain level, right? So women who join advertising industry are, for example, if you take, if you know if about Nirma or or Mira, you may have heard about their English language speaking skills, etc. So it's not just language, but also the dress code, because for advertising, women are specially groomed and trained to walk in a certain way and appear in a certain way, and also to speak English language. While women in the film industry are not groomed like that. They just leave, in many cases, they are coming from red light area or were coming from red light area until the end of past century and at the start of this century. So it just says that during 1990s and the first decade of the new millennium, religious adherents were throwing ink on images of women because they could not relate to them, and they thought they were distanciated from modern women in advertising billboards and on advertising billboards, and they felt that they could not relate to them. They were beyond their access. So that was one reason they felt like throwing ink on them. And as far as women,
Ma'am, I'm sorry, ma'am, I have a question.
Ji,
So
ji.
basically, you know how there are like stage dramas around Alhambra and other like places like Alhambra, and they have these huge posters of women, displayed in a way like quite offensive actually, and matlab, उनकी pictures इतनी बड़ी बड़ी लगी होती हैं, and they're like big posters, but I've never seen ink on their faces, even though they're they're wearing clothes like that. I mean, if they have an issue with the modern thing or the clothes or how they're out of their reach, then what's the point of those posters? Like, why haven't we ever seen ink on their like posters?
This was a particular time. It didn't happen before 1990s, right? So theater was there before 1990s. Cinema was there before 1990s. Advertising was also there before 1990s, right? So I'm saying that this is an incident that did not happen before 1990s, and it did happen all of a sudden, and it continued for about 2 decades. So if you look before and after those 2 decades, you will not see it happening. And I think there are, if you remember Asia Bibi's incident, I think it was probably last year when it happened. Do you remember Asia Bibi's name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you would recall that there was it was quite serious because people were burning cars even on motorway, and there was a lot of disturbance all over Pakistan, right? So I think there are certain situations when mob becomes active, and we can't say that it's happening all the time. And there are certain times when maybe we don't know who exactly was uh, behind these incidents, but these incidents continued happening for about 2 decades. They did not happen before or after. So if things stop happening, we can say that probably people have changed, or somebody is not investing in that kind of incidents, because whatever activity goes on or keeps happening throughout the city and all over Pakistan, somebody has to invest in it in some way. I mean, that's my opinion. uh, I'm not sure how to prove it, but because it was happening quite a lot during those 2 decades. And Duria Ghazi actually raised this question that why she did not raise the question, she just said that they attack advertising billboards, but they do not attack cinema billboards. So, what explanation comes to your mind for the incident? I mean, this is a question for all of us to think about. So when she mentioned it for the first time, she mentioned it in 2006. And I tried to create this explanation of the incident. This is from 2014. So this is a bit old, 6 years old article, okay? So it says the situation poses questions. Why are the advertising billboard attacks and the cinema billboards not attacked? And another way of finding the facts is to use survey method for data collection, because I haven't used survey method for data collection, because if I was using survey method, I would probably be asking questions from people, and then people would probably explain why ink on cinema billboards. Uh, another thing that I added later, I mean, I have discussed, but I haven't mentioned it in this article, is that cinema billboards are quite often inside the gates of cinema buildings, right? So something that is inside the cinema building is probably difficult to access or to attack. Uh, so I think that was probably another reason. Unless you find cinema billboards all around the city, I think cinema billboards are hardly found on motorways or GT road, between Lahore and Karachi. Billboards are often inside the cinema gates, so that can be another reason that they are protected. But here all I said that it says what mechanism, system of thought and knowledge of a culture is there in the mind of the religious adherent who is attacking the images on cinema billboards. So, and because it looks like disparity, attacking billboards, advertising billboards, but not cinema billboards. So I'm saying that the first explanation that I created, I have a question on my own work after about 5-6 years, and that explanation is that cinema billboards are protected, they are inside the cinema building. So there can be other factors also. And I think that when we look at a research, this is qualitative research, and we quantitative method is another way of verifying what is said here. But this actually creates debates on the question, right? Okay. So what I was saying about the difference between the two women is mentioned here, that women in cinema or women in film are quite often uneducated. This is a comment on women who were coming from red light area and they did not have basic English language skills, and they were not trained to have certain body language, or they were not given particular grooming. So it says the religious adherent finds her grooming offensive as opposed to his own, because he himself is not groomed like the woman. So he attacks the woman because she is outside his reach, and on top of it, she is trying to sell him a product. On advertising billboards, women are trying to sell products, right? And in our culture, male is in charge of goods. You know, in most cases, father is supposed to be the in charge of good. Father is the provider, and in case of in case if you look at images on the advertising billboards, women are normally trying to sell a product, and this role reversal is something that the male doesn't like. So he condemns the role reversal. He condemns distanciation of groomed women who he has difficulty objectifying. So revealing cinema billboards do not hurt him, but advertising billboards do hurt him. So all it says that Durya Kazi had actually said that women on cinema billboards are quite often revealing their bodies, because you see them in rain dances, and rain actually revealed their bodies because through the wet clothes. Okay. So is it clear or is it complicated? Here it says that male himself is a produce. Okay. And I said woman on the cinema billboard is trying to sell a product. And male being a produce, somebody who a woman gave birth to, byproduct of the seed, he does not like the role reversal. So this is the only explanation of the role reversal. A woman's seed to just her field, he feels annoyed with the memory of being a product of her seed, her apparent control over a product on the billboard, and her ability to make him recall the truth concerning the status, break his monopoly, and enter his domain to sell him a produce, thus he attacks. You can see it is mentioned here. So if you feel it is difficult, I can try explaining it again, that a male is a byproduct of woman's seed, and he does not like that she is selling a product and reversing his role and his monopoly by selling the product. Thus he attacks. Yes, no? You can certainly disagree if you do not like with this, if you do not agree with this explanation of the behavior. I said it was happening during the 2 decades. It may happen occasionally, and it will happen more if there was a wave going on and somebody was behind it, that there are things are happening like a wave off and on. For example, I think back in 2012, people were saying that it's right to kill people of certain religion or certain creeds or culture. So they thought that it's good to kill them. And then it slows down. And after some times, things start developing again. So all it is saying that certain behaviors are geared at a certain time. For example, I'll tell you that back in 1985-86, Lahore was almost burnt on 10th of Muharram, because there were people who were against the activities that happen on 10th of Muharram. In 1986, Nawaz Sharif was Chief Minister of Punjab, and government committed nothing will happen. Words ye the कि पत्ता भी नहीं हिलेगा on the same day, same date. So on 10th of Muharram 1986, nothing happened. While on 10th of Muharram 1985, at least I think 40 buildings were attacked and burnt. So you can understand that there are certain modes or certain waves going on at a certain times, and they have an effect on the environment and culture. So I do feel that during those 20 years or 2 decades, there was some kind of wave going on, and that's why these posters and billboards were attacked. And there are lesser attacks at present. And probably you can say that after Zia, the society started opening up. So that is probably another reason that because right now we have a kind of environment that we had back in 1970s or before 1970s, because once the British left, we had all kind of people, women. If you look at images from 1970s, or if you look for old family albums, you'll find women were wearing modern dresses in 1970s. But during Zia era, women were told to cover their heads all the time, especially in media. I think you may have heard these stories that many women left Pakistan television because they were forced to wear dupattas on their heads. And many artists, for example, if you speak to Shima Kirmani and other artists who have survived those times, they will talk about it, that how that it was quite hard for them to face investigations or to perform during that time, because Islamization was a process that that they are used to force everyone, and public at large had soft feelings for Zia's policies, because end of the day, most of the Pakistanis are Muslims, and most of the population does not belong to a certain economic group, right? So you would say that most of the lower middle class and many people from the middle class did believe in Zia's policies and support him for the Islamization process. Islam was used as a tool to force women to live in a certain way. So this article is actually focusing on the difference that Zia had created through films in the time and in real society. Okay, so it here it only says that the attacker attacks the role reversal attempt of the advertising icon due to the fear of the perceived distanciation. This woman on the advertising billboard is beyond his reach. He cannot get hold of her. He cannot take control of her. While he takes control of the woman within the diegesis. And now what does the diegesis means? Diegesis only means that when he is sitting inside the cinema, He's sitting in the darkness of the theater and he has one-to-one relationship with the image of the woman in the film. So if the woman looks into the camera, she's looking directly into the eyes of the viewer, right? So this woman has an eye contact with the woman, with the man in the cinema, and the male inside the male viewer inside the cinema looks at the woman's image, and through the male protagonist, he takes control of the woman in the film. So this is about the association between the male viewer and the male protagonist. And psychoanalysis, or what Mulvey says, is it just implies that male viewer inside the theater, inside the darkness of the theater, has a very strong relationship uh, with the with his like, who is the male protagonist in the film, and through him he takes control of the woman within the diegesis. Is that clear, or do I need to explain it again?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Okay. So
It's
Malve,
clear, ma'am.
so Malve is only talking about the image, about the relationship between the male viewer and the male protagonist. That is the image of his life that helps him create this strong relationship with the woman on the cinema screen. He cannot have this relationship with the woman on the advertising billboard, because advertising billboard is not inside the cinema screen, inside the darkness of the theater. And I believe that cinema billboards are protected is another explanation. So it says that the icon's function and grooming and the subject's mobility hinders the process of objectification, because these billboards are mostly on the road. They are put on the roadsides, on the highways, motorways, and people are sitting in their cars or buses when they cross the billboards. So mobility also hinders the process of objectification. While in cinema, he is sitting in just one place and watching the film. So darkness of the theater facilitates the process that mobility hinders while you are on the road. The advertising icon gazes at him and calculatedly connects his purchasing power to a product. तो वो जो advertising billboard पे woman है, she just wants to sell the product, and it's a question on his purchase power. So again, the distance increases because of woman's action on the advertising billboard. The advertising icon is unreachable, while cinema celebrity is reachable. She offers him the satisfaction of subject-object relationship and the power of gaze. He can gaze at the woman inside the cinema, inside the theater, but it is difficult for him to keep gazing at the woman on the advertising billboard. So celebrity on cinema screen surrenders to his will in the theater, like an everyday Pakistani woman. So this common man, when he meets the common woman at his home, the common woman surrenders to his needs, and the cinema celebrity also surrenders to his needs in the darkness of the theater. It says that in Zia's era, complexity increased because these women provided a contrast to real women in society, because in post-Zia era, post-1979 films, you can see that sexuality or nudity was increasing, and that was a time that families stopped going to the cinemas, right? So Zia's forced Islamization had an impact. Woman in the cinema was free, and woman outside was not free. She was covered in abaya. So that's the only thing. The outfits of real women and their representation represent a shift in the opposite direction in the two eras, which means before 1979, if you look at old pictures from before the era, you would see women used to wear maxis. They used to wear bell-bottom pants and double-breast shirts, and they were quite independent. What I recall that before the era, I remember that my khalas, etc., with their friends, 10, 12 women will gather and go to cinemas to watch a film. But after there, this scene was almost eliminated. I think it is you are back in times that your group of friends can go to cinema and watch film together. It had stopped happening for at least 2 decades during the Zia era, which would be throughout 1980s. It was not happening, and it was not happening during 1990s either, because women were not going to watch films on their own or with their families. Families felt uncomfortable with films that were produced in the post 1979 era. Um, okay, so let's mark attendance before starting the next um reading. Any questions so far while I open CMS? I don't know how it. Alishba,
Present, ma'am.
Amina, Amna,
Yes, ma'am, here.
Ariba, Hassan Amir, Ikra, all right. Kanza, Komal,
Present.
Ma'am, I'm present. My internet's disconnected.
who is that? Sorry, I can't see right now. All
Kansa.
right. Okay. Kulsum, Myra,
Ma'am, Myra Amir is present. She can't unmute.
okay. Mariam, Misha, is Mariam present? Nimra, Umar, Ramin,
Present, ma'am.
Tareem,
Present, ma'am.
Zarish, and Zoha.
Present, ma'am. Zarish is also present, ma'am.
All right, so please just check. I have marked Omar absent, Misha absent, Mariam absent, Kulsum absent, and Ikra, Hassan, and Ariba. Also Amina. All right. Let me turn the sound on as well. Okay, so it says Pakistani films use a lot of different techniques to hook male audience to the cinema screen. Uh, did I mention 4 types of looks in one of my lectures? I think I did mention it in the first lecture. Can anyone recall what were those 4 looks? Okay, the first look is through the camera, which means the first look is by the filmmaker. And the second look is by the viewer sitting in the cinema. So, second look is by the viewer by himself. And the third look is by the society at large, because viewers discuss things among themselves. When they rediscuss or discuss content of film, they sometimes change their opinions or develop their opinions. So that is called the third look. And as mentioned before, that fourth look is by the screen itself, according to Paul Willman, because Paul Willman said that screen takes control of the viewer like a gorgon. Viewer cannot look anywhere else in the darkness of the theater, just the screen, and screen takes control of him. So he wrote an article, It's Looking at You. So you can say that cinema was used for propaganda and to take control of common men. So the fourth look is uh, the about the control of the elite, or the fourth look is for propaganda as the screen takes control of you. Here it says something that I already said. I read it from Malve's article. It says these pre-existing patterns of female fascination or female objectification or gaze are already at work within individual subjects and social formations that have molded him. A film reflects, reveals, and even plays on the straight, socially established interpretations of sexual differences. It emphasizes who is male and who is female. It takes control of images. It takes control of erotic ways of looking and spectacle. So Malve thinks that the unconscious of patriarchal society has structured the film form, because quite often we are insisting that we should use film and media to promote culture. And when we use images that are contradictory or against our norms, people start writing against them or start opposing them. So all she's saying that film is used, film reinforces what society wants, and the unconscious or patriarchal society has structured the film form. And Komoli and Narboni say that we learn from culture and from social formations, and bourgeois realism is something that society teaches us, and teaches us about conservative box of tricks, blind faith in life, blind faith in humanism, blind faith in common sense, etc., or blind faith in sexual differences. For example, if we say that Sabah Kaisar of A Girl in the River was attacked because she did not follow the norms, she did not believe in norms, and she did something against the norms. So the attacker had blind faith in the norm, and he had blind faith in interpretations of sexual differences or male female, and that is one explanation why Sabah was attacked. Okay, so it says that pre-1979 films, which means cinema after 1947, was promoting images of Chui Mui girls. I think I mentioned Chui Mui girl in my last lecture, and I said that we will be discussing her in detail in the next lecture. So I would like to share the film clip again And let's see what I mean by Chui Mui girl. Are you familiar with the term Chui Mui? Are you familiar with the term Chui Mui?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am,
All
I
right.
can't recall, but I've heard of it.
Chui Mui, in fact, the meaning is written there in the article as well. So I would explain it. All right. So can anyone recall what we discussed about her image in the last class? I briefly discussed how she is behaving, what she's looking like, because Chui Mui girl is a terminology that is used for this kind of images. Uh, can you try explaining what she's looking like? Ji.
Ma'am, you mentioned okay, she doesn't face the camera and she doesn't, look into the eyes. तो वही कर रही है, she is not looking into the camera.
Right. Okay, I think it says one here. So if you would, by clicking one, you can actually find the meaning. That meaning is a bit long. It just says that these are the women who believe in culture very, very strongly. They are passive sexually, and they are basically chui mui means touch me not. Like if you touch me, chui mui is actually a plant. If you know about the chui mui plant, if you touch it, it pulls it's a kind of fern. Like it has a number of leaves in place of one leaf. So if you touch it, it just closes itself. So it says chui mui actually means touch me not kind of girl. Someone who strongly believes in traditions and who is sexually passive and not active. She does not believe in premarital relationship, and she does not believe in extramarital relationship at all. This Chui Mui girl only believes in a relationship with her husband, and she saves her virginity for the husband as the culture desires. So Chui Mui girl is the one. If you look back at the image of the woman here, Shamimara, so Shamimara does not make an eye contact with the camera. She does not look into the camera at all. She's looking down, and she's wearing uh, a dress that fully covers her body. So she's not revealing her body at all. This is the kind of dress she's wearing. And I did mention that Chui Mui girl is a girl that Urdu cinema was promoting. It was promoting Chui Mui girl before partition, and it kept promoting Chui Mui girl after partition. And when NEFDEC, that is National Film Development Corporation, was formed, it also emphasized on filmmakers quite often to make Urdu films, because Urdu films promoted this kind of woman and this type of culture. So in old films, you will quite often find women wearing garara. Like I believe she is wearing some dress of that kind. And garara is a dress that comes from Urdu speaking elite of Delhi and Lucknow. So you can say that Urdu cinema was promoting this girl who never made an eye contact with the male or elderly. So Chui Mui girl is a woman who does not make an eye contact with elderly or men, because she has been trained that way. She's been brought up in a manner never to make an eye contact with men. So this kind of woman will give a certain type of visual pleasure to male audience in the cinema or to the male protagonist in the film. Or I think in terms of Urdu speaking or Pakistani culture in the past, you may have come across these words like Sharmo Haya ki Putli, and our culture for quite some time did not encourage women to look into the eyes of men in particular. So eye contact was never encouraged. While in today's world, we know that eye contact is very important, and the one who makes eye contact can be in charge of her matters, and one who does not make an eye contact perhaps will not be the in charge of the matters because she's not trying to take charge of it. So this kind of woman will offer certain type of pleasure. uh, the article only says that if you look at this kind of woman, uh, she's looking down, she's giving you a chance to look at her closely while she's not looking at you. So by looking at her closely, you can have all the pleasure. So this woman has a policy of looking down. uh, Shuimui girl often depends on her friend or somebody to make contact with the male protagonist in the film. So Urdu cinema was quite often encouraging or promoting culture that women should look like this, and women should be like what they called haya ki putli, and haya meaning sharmo haya ki putli, that women have this kind of body language and this kind that is how they behave in society and in everyday life. So if film promoted this type of culture, the viewer will also be encouraged to behave in this way, and a lot of viewers will actually believe in this kind of uh, behavioral strategies. Okay, so Choimui girl is a girl uh, of the past, and the article says that in the post 1979 era, bold and beautiful protagonists replaced the Choimui girl. In earlier film, bold and beautiful protagonists were antagonists. If you look at if you find a 1977 film, you will see that modern woman was actually presented as an antagonist. Mumtaz, I believe, first appeared as antagonist because I can't recall the name of the film, perhaps Bhool, uh, I think. So she returns from UK, and she is when she returns home, she finds, I think it was Shabnam and Nadeem in the film, and Shabnam was interested. Nadeem and Shabnam were interested in each other, and Shabnam was very traditional, and the girl who had returned from UK was in modern dress. She tried to take interest in Nadeem, and Nadeem did not return her. She did not. He did not react in the manner she wanted. So Shabnam was a painter, so she actually, the antagonist, modern antagonist, burnt her paintings at the exhibition. So actually, the film was presenting modern women as antagonists before 1979, and after 1979, modern women became the protagonist in the film. And that is the time when this debate on, like traditional women against immorality of bold and beautiful women started. I think newspapers were quite often criticizing serenity of past women against the obscenity of modern protagonists in the film. And these two protagonists were offering different kind of gaze. Okay. Uh, any question? Okay. So it says that film started presenting bold and beautiful modern women as protagonists in the post 1979 era. If you read Duria Kazi's article, she would say that women were free inside the film, not in society, in the post 1979 era. So you would find women dancing on the roads, dancing on the mountains, dancing anywhere they wanted. But women in real life could not actually dance or express their emotions the way a woman expresses her emotions in the film. All right. So all it says that pre-1979 films were promoting some sort of puritanical culture of people of elites of Delhi and Lucknow. And post 1979 films were not promoting culture of the elites of Delhi and Lucknow, and the culture of the protagonists in the two eras was exactly opposite. In post 1979 era, because lots of Punjabi films were produced, so Punjabi films started adding dirty dancers or charismatic Punjabi villainy to the cinema, which means a trio joined the film in the post 1979 era, and that trio included a dirty dancer, a Punjabi villain, and a vulgar comedian. Uh, that is not my comment. That is a comment that every newspaper was printing about the trio that appeared in Punjabi films in the post 1979 era. Okay, all right. So, how is this Chui Mui girl different from the bold, beautiful protagonist of post 1979 era? It says that the Chui Mui girl never raised her eyes before the elderly and men. She bowed her head to the male gaze to make an offer of the kind. I am doing my job, you do yours. So if you look at Shamimara again, and if she's not making an eye contact with the male viewer or the male protagonist in the film, she's just offering the pleasure of looking down. I am doing my job, you do yours. Like, I'm not looking at you, but you can keep looking at me from top to bottom. So it says that the strategy of this Chuime girl was that she offered pleasure by looking down. She offered male audience to look at her, and she said, uh, she did not say in words, but she offered him to look at her closely. And the strategy is, I'm doing my job looking down, you do your looking at me. Okay? You can definitely disagree with the concepts. It's always good to agree and disagree with the concepts. So Shamimara closely guarded her self-respect and womanhood and sexuality without losing her premarital virginity and uh, post-marital respect by getting involved in adultery or extramarital affairs. So, what do you think that what do you think the bold and beautiful woman did in the post 1979 era? She was just the opposite of Shamimara, because what Shamimara was doing was done by all past protagonists like Asha Bhosle, Sabanlata, and Shamim. So, if you look at past films of Nayar Sultana, uh, Musarat Nazir, uh, if you look at Phere or Shahida, and even any other woman from the pre 1979 era, you would see this film Baji was very popular, and the one I showed you a scene from Kaidi. They are all pre 1979 films, so they promoted the Chui Mui girl. After uh, after this time, after 1979, we have films like Rima first appeared in Bulandi, and then Meera performed in Samina Pirzada's film Intiha. And this film was a super hit film because it included a rape scene. And I think that censor board did not excise that rape scene fully, so it attracted a lot of audience to the theater. And then, as I mentioned, that we'll be discussing Sher Lahore more. So I think I'll select a scene from Sher Lahore to see what is the difference between Shamimara And
Ma'am, I have a question.
जी जी बताइए.
How is it different from a woman, quote unquote, provoking a man with her
Sorry.
sexuality or her dressing?
Please, can you repeat your question because I was trying to change the film. जी. Can you repeat the question?
ये जो how is it different from a woman who is quote unquote provoking a man with her sexuality or her dressing? मतलब कि इसमें भी जो छुई मुई है, she's also providing, I mean, that's what it's perceived, कि she's providing pleasure for the man or the observer to, you know, seek pleasure out of it while she's not looking directly into the
Right.
camera. So how is it different?
So look at this image in front of you. Don't you think that she's very different from Shamimara?
Yes.
And does she represent a typical Pakistani girl?
No.
All right. So in the post 1979 era, this kind of images started, uh, appearing in the film. So woman, that's why Durya Ghazi is saying that woman is free in film. She's not free in society. So you can see the difference between these two women. So difference is very obvious in their dresses, in their body language. Because if I keep playing this song, have you seen this clip before? Have you
Which
seen
one, ma'am?
this one, the one I selected? This is from, okay, this was a Diamond Jubilee film by Sangeeta herself. So a woman produced this film. She was director of this film, producer, director. And this is the film after which many male filmmakers started saying that if a woman can do this, why can't we do this? Right? So you can say that this film, a woman made this film, and I would try playing it and skip some scenes. Okay, so you can then we'll discuss how she is different from the other woman. Do you think that Shamimara would behave like this in a film? That's a very different kind of behavior. This behavior is very different. So that's why I said, Ji Nimra.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask, was this sort of representation influenced by how Indian movies also changed their representations? Because around this time or a bit earlier, we see Parveen Babi, I think, or there was this actor, I forgot her name, but they also started presenting such, or at least the female characters were a bit like these.
Well, in Indian films, you will find women like this in 1970s and 80s. For Pakistan, this is a 2001 film, and I said okay, a woman made this film, and because Sangeeta was adding this kind of characters to her films, male filmmakers started saying that if a woman can do this, why can't we have rain dancers in our films? Right. So I think that it's not absolutely essential that we think that it is because of Indian influence, because sometimes we have access to Indian film and sometimes we do not have the permission to watch Indian films. Now it's extremely interesting that in my last class I did mention that government started putting bars on Indian films back in 1950s, which is like 4 or 5 years after partition. In 1952, government imposed barter policy, that Pakistan and India could exchange equal number of films between them, forgetting that India was a larger market for our films. And we had few cinemas and we did not have sufficient films for those cinemas, right? So in 1965, government banned Indian film altogether. So the answer to your question is very complex, because when government banned Indian film in Pakistan, Indian film did not stop coming to Pakistan, because towards the end of 1970s, VCR was introduced in Pakistan, and towards the end of 1980s, dish antenna came in Pakistan. So you can understand that people were watching Indian films on VCR throughout 1980s, and then they were watching Indian film on satellite dish throughout 1990s. So people always had access, and right now that government has actually banned Star TV and ZTV in Pakistan, or Color in Pakistan. I think everybody is watching Indian soaps on YouTube or via some other method, because they are available online. So I don't understand what exactly ban means, because of course I understand that uh, people have started watching Hum TV, Geo TV plays, or ARY digital plays since the ban, because perhaps not everybody has access to internet and not everyone has access to uh, proper cell phones, proper gadgets or computers. So a lot of people are actually, society at large is watching Indian content even still, and many are watching only Hum and ARY digital kind of stuff. G.
Ma'am, I had another question. In the video that you've shown, it's clear that for them, the bold and beautiful also involved some form of bodily or sexual agency of the woman. However, were these characters, did they also include more social या फिर economic या political agency के मतलब they were shown as socially or economically independent women, or a woman with her own thought, or something like that as well, or was it only limited to bodily autonomy?
Right. It only says, if you keep reading here, that Nirma appeared in Sher Lahore, Nargis appeared in similar kind of, Nargis had similar appearance in Chudiyan, and Khushbu in Sajan Ke Pyar. So these were romantic extroverts. And as I said before, that Shamimara's policy or strategy was, I am looking down, doing my job, you look at me, do your job, right? So her strategy was different. And this woman, this independent woman who is sexually extrovert, she is expressing herself. You can see that her strategy is very different. She says, she comes to Muhammad Rana and she says, I am all yours. I mean, if you look at her body language, the way she is running around him, pulling him to herself. So this woman is actually trying to seduce her, and she is sexually extrovert. She is not introvert. She's not an introvert like Shamimara. And Shamimara is, Chui girl is somebody who would selfishly guard her virginity. And this romantic extrovert is not interested in guarding her virginity. She is more interested in having a relationship with the male, and has I am all yours strategy.
Okay, ma'am, so like in conclusion, both are still subscribing to male dominance, except this one is just being a bit more extroverted in that sense.
Right.
Or at least being more sexually explicit in that sense.
Yes, she is sexually explicit, while Shamimara is trying to save her sexuality for her prospective husband. Right? So this is basically correct, that both women are in a way performing some role that patriarchy has assigned to them. You said economically, so we'll have to watch full film to understand if Birma had a different role and she had mobility and was active work-wise, you know. So otherwise, we'll end up saying that the money is coming from this kind of performance. Okay. So
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah, okay. So this is the trio of dirty dancer, vulgar comedian, and charismatic Punjabi villain. And as I said before, that in Mohammad Rana in this particular scene was showing some sort of movement, little movement, but a scene that we watched, I think, day before yesterday, did not show him much active. He was standing in one place, and the protagonist was walking all around him, dancing all around him. So, as I said in the last class, this trio actually replaced dancing hero of the Urdu film. So if you watch Urdu films from pre-1979 era, you will find dancing heroes. And Punjabi villain and Punjabi hero actually made him look fake. They thought that the protagonist, male protagonist of Urdu film, is hardly has masculinity because he's not aggressive. And Punjabi cinema actually introduced villains and comedians and male protagonists who were very active, and they could fight for everything. So fake only refers to the behavior of the hero, right? Male protagonist. So they thought that male protagonist of Urdu film looks gentle and weak. He lacks masculinity. And as opposed to Mustafa Qureshi and Sultan Rahi and later Shan. Okay. And I think we did discuss this before, that Monica Mehta says people started calling these, like these are dirty films, they are not suitable for families, etc. Because as Monica Mehta says, society believes sex is base. You cannot discuss sex or sexuality in front of children, or you cannot show women in that kind of role. So this is the image of women. Like you can see that this was the family in films in pre-1979 era. You can see all women are covering their heads with dupatta, and all men have a certain body language. So post 1979 films, this is again a 1969 film, Jalwa, and post again 1973, before Zia. And these are, you can see dance from pre-1979 era and dance in films from post 1979 eras. So after 1979, we started seeing this kind of images. And before 1979, if you watched a woman like this, she would normally be an antagonist in the film. And a woman in Bedar would be a foreigner in pre-1979 film, because apparently Pakistani film did not believe in showing a woman in swimming costume. So you can see these images are becoming even more and more bold. On the left is a scene from a Punjabi film. You can see Laila and Babrak. Film's title is Sarkar. This film was released in 2005, and she's hardly wearing anything if you think of Pakistani culture. And this is another image of Haya Ali from Ziddi Rajput 2005. So you can see these images were becoming more and more bold over a period of time. Ji, any question? All right. If you can recall Shami Mara's image, Let me show you another clip from pre-1979 era. Can you see YouTube right now? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So this woman is dancing again in a private space, right? Shamimara was singing in private space, and now this woman is also dancing in her private space. Okay, so all it says that pre and post 1979 films uh, offered different kind of images. So you could see that Shamimara was yearning for the male protagonist uh, in privacy. And again, this woman is also thinking about the guy in her privacy. Uh, while while Nirma in the other scene was not interested in privacy. That's why I'm saying that these two women have different kind of strategies for their everyday behavior. Shamimara and this woman in Pakistan, both of them are, they are very traditional women. They are interested in male protagonists, but Shamimara, in most cases, uh, if you watch the whole film, you would find that she keeps on denying that she is in love with Darpan in the film. Darpan is the protagonist, male protagonist in the film. And Shamimara, even when she meets him, she doesn't make an eye contact with him. And if when he wants to find out if she's interested in him, she says no. She denies. She does not express her feelings. So that's why I'm saying that Chui Mui girl is somebody who would deny her feelings because she's trying to protect herself for the husband. She's not interested in pre or post marital relationships. She will save her sexuality or for the husband, prospective husband in most cases. So that's why I'm saying that this is the behavior. Chui Mei girl uh, will not make an eye contact with the male, especially somebody जिसको उर्दू में हम कहते हैं नामहरम. Nameram is a word, I don't know if you've come across this word, but it means somebody who is not related to you. So, Urdu film would normally say that you can make an eye contact with your father or brother or husband, but you should not make an eye contact with somebody who is not related. And as I said earlier, that through her body language, she would be saying, I'm doing my job, looking down, you do yours, looking at me, right? So she will surrender to the gaze of the male. Okay? So it says that Shamimara offers uninterrupted and exclusive Eastern gaze to the male gazing at her, right? So this image perhaps will be very pleasing for certain men. I am not saying it will be pleasing for every man today, but many men will be very pleased with the woman, with the kind of woman Shamimara is in the film. And Nilo in the other song that we heard just now, Nilo also seems committed and absorbed in the vocabulary because she's singing Mohabbat ke dam se ye duniya hasi hai. So she's thinking about the male protagonist and she's not thinking about anything else. So both of these women trust in love and uh, they want the male to gaze at them. They are not gazing back at male bodies. So this is just the Eastern gaze of passive woman from the East. So gazed at Eastern women passively yearn from men. And here you would see this is translation of a dialogue from the film. It says, no, this is not the translation. It is again one of Malve's comment. Malve says that this kind of women uh, have physical attributes uh, and body language, born look good, look beautiful, born pretty, born lucky, a condition which makes it possible and acceptable within bourgeois ethnic for girls to parade. So she thinks that the kind of two women like Shamimara and Nilo, these women will silently parade when somebody comes for their rishta. So they will silently parade, they will not do anything else, and they are found suitable for marriage, while somebody will not find Nirma suitable for marriage. So Nirma would be good for perhaps having a relationship, but Shamimara would be good for giving birth to the next generation of the family. So it says that women like Shamimara would be silent and smiling, pretty women. Silent and smiling pretty women within physical confines and passivity, which shows their narrow destiny. All they will do, they will get married and look after their families or family of their husband. They'll give birth to their children, and that's all. So it says that is the merit of her. She is selected on the merit of face and figure. A pretty Eastern woman, trained to smile silently before him and exclusively yearn for him to her privacy, in her privacy. So this classified yearning emphasizes her unspoken, unshown genius for sexuality, and that sexuality is restricted to the husband, classified sexuality and classified yearning for him in his absence. She is lucky and he is also lucky. Finding her fulfills bourgeois ethic by providing a suitable ground to begin an uneven power relationship. Uneven because she will always follow uh, his instructions and she will always do what he wants. Okay, so they begin an uneven power relationship here. Male maturity is coupled with female immaturity in the kind of scene that we just saw, right? So purity and innocence and gazing of male is emphasized. Male can gaze, female cannot gaze. And as opposed to Shamimara, the other film scene of Nirma, that scene shows fragmented female body. So what does fragmented mean? Any idea what fragmented? Fragmented means that you are not, you are showing fragments of body, right? So you can see that you're showing full body, close up or close up of her face or close up of some other body part. So it only says that these films show body in fragments, like you are showing fragmented female body, which makes it easier to focus on certain images. All right. In Sher Lahore, like the other film, it requires that you act like a mature person and reveal. Nirma acts like a mature person and reveals her body, while Shamimara is not expected to act like a mature person or reveal her body. She is expected to behave the other way. Nirma's fragmented exhibitionism is forbidden for someone like Shamimara, right? So pre-1979 films did not allow this kind of exhibitionism, fragmented exhibitionism. Okay. So if in pre-1979 film somebody behaved like Nirma, film would show that society punished the woman for her open sexuality. But in post 1979 films, women dancing in the rains are hardly shown punished by society, right? So here is a comment by Shan. He says that when elites started criticizing Punjabi film for being sexually explicit, Shan said, those judging and criticizing Lollywood have no right to take away the happiness or pleasure of a man on the street, because he's been working for perhaps 12 hours, and after 12 hours or 8 hours work, if somebody goes to cinema to watch Nirma's film, so Shan is just saying nobody has the right to take away his pleasure. And as I said before, this film was a platinum jubilee film. It did not fail on box office. It was a super hit film. Okay. So Malve again says, and I think we did discuss it a bit in the last class, that Malve said a little more about women who exhibit their bodies. She said that in Miss World competition, you would find women, and Miss World competition, you would find erotic exhibition, because you'll see women in bathers and they are marked for all kind of appearances. So she said that somebody from the organizers said that only plain women talk like this. And Malve said that this is women who express their opinion are often considered bullies. Okay. So Sher Lahore shows women who are not following the traditional female road to success. And in Kaidi, Shamimara has a role that shows woman's traditional role on the road to success. If she behaves like Shamimara, her marriage will be successful and she will be married in a good family. Now, here is a song from a 1964 film, Chingari. This song was banned over 50 years ago. Let me show you the song and we'll try to understand why it was banned.
रोशनी के शहर बताओ, उजियारों में अंधियारों का ये कितने भरा है शहर बताए, रोशनी के शहर बताओ। सड़कों पे हंसी खिलाते हैं राय बदल बरसाते हैं
All right. So this was Pakistan until Bhutto's times, right? So you can see that this is a scene from a club, and you can also see what kind of dresses women are wearing. Those women who are inside the club, and even women who are outside the club. Can somebody try describing what you have seen just now? And I said the song was banned. Okay, just see what is written here. Did you notice? This is one of Pakistan's clubs. It was there until the end of Bhutto era, right? And there were many clubs all over Pakistan until the end of Bhutto era where people could go and have good time. But this song was censored, completely removed, and it is banned on Radio Pakistan even today. Radio Pakistan will broadcast any song but this song. I am not sure if you understood the lyrics. Let's try to see what the lyrics say. On the right, you can see the translation of the lyrics. On the left, it says, "ए रोशनियों के शहर बता, अंधियारों में उजियारों में," which means रोशनियों का शहर is this is a title for Karachi most often, but I wonder if this was a scene from Mall Road, Lahore, because if you read this, it says ये अंधियारों में उजियारों में, meaning light in daylight or at night, ये किसने भरा है जहर बता, सड़कों पे हंसी लहराते हैं इतराते हैं. So at that point, we saw that three girls were walking here. He said, "सड़कों पे हंसी इतराते हैं," and three girls were walking. See, these three girls are walking to the club. The club's name is Women by Night, and these three women are, you can see their body movement while walking on the road. So probably women were dancing outside this nightclub, and they are also dancing inside the nightclub. And you can see that women, whether inside or outside, all of them are wearing dupattas in this scene. Though they are in modern dress. They are wearing sleeveless dresses. You can see these are, very tight dresses that were in fashion at the time. Right? So can we imagine this scene in Lahore even today, that we believe that Lahore is very modern again? Okay. Ji, any comment on the song or the scenes?
Ma'am, I have a sorry, I have a question. Is this song criticizing or the way the way these practices used to work in our society, which presented itself as upholding Islamic values, or is it hinting at other parts of our society, like
the male protagonist is very traditional, right? And it's I think it's the story of two sisters. One sister is very modern and one is very traditional. The traditional sister stays at home and modern sister goes to the club all the time. And one night she is very late and the father says, kahin ye mera muh na kala kar de, and the girl gets raped that night. So I think the film was primarily produced to discourage women's mobility, modernity, and sexuality. That's why they say that we should make films that promote our culture. So the film, and as far as song, what I wanted you to see that there is hardly any nudity in the film. Women are dancing, but they are not revealing their bodies. And this film was this was the title song of the film, and the title song was banned altogether. Radio Pakistan did not never broadcast it, and it's banned even today, though certificates are normally issued for 5 years or 10 years, so we should have assumed that ban had expired after 5 years or whatever was the duration of the census certificate. But once it was banned, Radio Pakistan never broadcast it, right? So that's why I'm saying okay, this 1964 song is banned even after 56 years at Radio Pakistan. It's not showing female nudity. In the lyrics, he does say that beautiful women display their pride on the roads. And Gadrai Badan only means, like I have used voluptuous bodies, but it does, it only means sexy women. They keep twisting. Okay. And then he says, Chalke sagar takrate hain, which means people have wine glasses or they say cheers. जिस्मों की नुमाइश होती है. So women were hardly showing their bodies, but it does say the bodies are exhibited. So he's calling it body exhibition because women are dancing when they wear tight dresses. He feels they are exhibiting their bodies. Though I do think that bodies are inside the dress, but because they are tight dresses, he says that they are exhibiting their bodies. And clubs.
Ma'am, but it looks like the guy is really disappointed that women are going to clubs and all. So why is it such a big deal? They're showing that the guy himself is not okay with it. So
The
why
guy,
are
because
look at his face and he's all really looks like he's gonna cry.
did you recognize him? He was Noor Jahan's husband, Ijaz Durrani.
Oh, I didn't know.
He was Madam Noor Jahan's former husband, and I think this is Ijaz Durrani.
Yes,
Right?
it's also like a bit of a shame that they used Mehdi Hassan's voice to sing the song. Like, it's sad कि इतनी प्यारी शायरी and इस तरह का message.
शायर तो फिर हर तरह की पोएट्री लिखते हैं ना, तो शायर is only expressing. Some poets will be uncomfortable and some will be fine with them, so all kind of people live in Pakistan. So I said the film is actually supporting his point of view, because I think probably this is Diba, and good sister was I think Zeba in the film. So Zeba versus Diba. Eventually, good women win. The woman who doesn't leave her house, and the woman who leaves house and goes to club, she gets raped. So in the end, the film tries to prove that women's mobility is no good, and film proves that she's she's raped because of her sexuality. She's proved a bad woman, uh, and film ends at her correction, because she would, in the end, a raped woman would die, and before dying, she would say she was wrong. So that would be the overall message of film. I can understand the male looks uh, disturbed, but he is probably communicating emotions of society at large, or you know. So this is, I think, the whole song is mentioned here with the translation. So if you want to see, you can actually go through it. The next article actually focuses on women's honor. I said this was by Sadaf Ahmed, and she discusses how film treats bodies of women, or women who are dishonored. If the body is dishonored, film would actually kill the woman, even if she was raped and she was innocent. So even still, the film would kill the innocent woman after rape, because if she lives, she would bring bad name to society, to the family, and to her immediate community. So film would have a tendency of killing the woman. So this is just what the film is showing. It does not mean that this should be the reality, or this should be the way things should happen, but this only shows what the film is showing. So it says that Shamimara has a narrow destiny, and narrow destiny against physical confines of the way women are seen and the way they fit into society. So that is Shamimara's role in the film. Narrow destiny means that she will get married. She should remain a passive woman, ताकि उसकी अच्छी जगह शादी हो जाए. If she becomes active, especially sexually active, it will be bad, and she will not have a good future, according to the film. So all it says that in the post 1917 era, censor authorities did not uh, excise the scene that we just saw. They did not excise Nirma's scene. They left it in the film. So I said that there was another article in Google Classroom. Its title is Censorship of Visual Pleasure. This is visual pleasure. The other article is called Censorship of Visual Pleasure. So that article actually says that even pre-1979 films were shooting this kind of scenes, like the scene in which we saw Nirma dancing, Nirma trying to seduce a male. So such scenes were shot even pre-1979 era, but censor board removed those films, and censor board did not allow to exhibit film until the scenes were removed. And in the post 1979 era, censor board never removed the scenes. So that's how we end up seeing these scenes in post 1979 films. So post 1979 films challenge the norms of society. Okay, though they are still promoting pre-existing pattern of female fascination. G, any question? So the only thing that I would add is here that Shan said and everybody else said that these films are produced for common men, because common cinephile, the man on the street, enjoys these films. And it says, as I said earlier, that from Laura Mulvey's article, she was talking about phallocentrism and division of power between male and female. So it says that films actually um show system of thought and knowledge of a culture. That is what they reflect. And this quote is from Eugenio Donato and Derrida. Originally, Derrida said it in 1970, then it was republished in 2007. And I think they publish every 2-3 years, they publish a new edition of Critical Tradition. So I'm sure by now you would have some new edition of the book. So logos means father and tokos means the son. So in terms of phallocentrism, uh, father is the capital or money or and goods. He's the chief of the family, the chief, the capital, the goods, because he's the provider. And by wanting women to behave in these ways, uh, films actually reinforce father's principles. He's the chief, he's the capital, he's in charge of goods, and everyone is indebted to the father. And indebtedness demands that the son does what the father does, right? As product, the toko is the child, the human or animal brood who should get into his father's shoes, the fruit of the seed like the father, and he is responsible for maintaining the interest on a capital investment. It's a return on the value. Son actually does what the father does. The logos and tokos continue inherently uh, constitute consumerism in addition to symbolic order. So the women in the symbolic order have to be subservient, and logos and tokos run the show. So all visual and textual messages that we see in the film actually follow these rules set by logos and tokos, and that continue in the films. And symbolic order continues in terms of relationships of women and men in the film, right? So this is precisely what the culture wants, and culture sets it as the good in the visible and invisible figure of the father. This should be son with an O, right? The father, the son, or the capital. So father and son become the capital. And origin of all, onta only means all beings, all human beings. Onta is for beings, all human beings follow these principles. Okay? And the son, the toko or the son follows father's principle because he is responsible for his coming into being. And phallus is mentioned again here. As bearers of phallus, both father and son represent the positive presence, and woman represents absence or castrated female entity. G, any question? All it says that female viewer, when he's sitting in the cinema, he gets lost in the unwritten texts, scenes, turns and twists of the films, in the dialogues of the films. And the action of the protagonist becomes his action for him. He's lost in the situations, and everything becomes real for him inside the cinema. Because he has a relationship with the screen in the darkness of the theater, and that is one-to-one relationship. Here it mentions what I said earlier, that Shamimara actually admits to Darpan in the film, because at the time of the climax, she's feeling that, you know, every film has a climax, or you can say that temporary separation between the protagonists, and after that the two unite, and that's the time when Shamimara actually admits to the male protagonist that she is in love with him. She was always in love with him, but she kept on saying no, she was yearning for him. Uh, Here it says that male viewer gets lost uh, in the image of his like. As I said earlier, that male protagonist is his like, and through the male protagonist, he is taking control of the woman in the diegesis. You know, in Kadi, you would hear that one saying, "My sleep belongs to her, my brain belongs to her, my nights belong to her." Matlab, if he can't sleep, so he's saying that he can't sleep because of the woman who does not make an eye contact with him. He gazes at her, but she does not gaze back at him. Uh, in a scene, I think this film is also available on YouTube. So in a particular scene, Shamimara actually becomes unconscious. She's at the lawyer's office making a complaint against the male protagonist, and she wants to file a case against him. And male protagonist comes there. She was not expecting him, so she becomes unconscious, and he just rushes to her and gets hold of her. So here I have only described what is happening in the scene. And that's what I said, that when you do your assignments, when you write your assignments, you also try explaining what is happening in the scene. So I think at least here I have given description, a slightly longer description of the scene, because when she becomes unconscious, the male and female protagonists, uh, we see a very, very romantic scene. We see them in romantic postures, right? He objectifies her and gazes at her face and bosom as her sari's pallu, jo sari ka pallu hai, it slips down her chest. So she's facing the audience, she's facing the camera. So she's facing the audience, and when her pallu falls down, both the male protagonist and audience are looking at her. So we can say that at this point, we are again looking at a fragmented body. Or there are other people in the room, they see in this posture, and all they say hi, and then they leave, leaving the two protagonists there. So all we can say that subject-object relationship is very strong in this part, because Shamimara is in his arms, she's unconscious, and male viewer feels that she is in their arms through the male protagonist, because in the darkness of the theater he has a very strong relationship with the image of his like. And don't go, not a bad man I am by heart. Shamimara says, when she uh, at the closure of the scene, his like delivers the dialogue, because Shamimara gets up and leaves him. She doesn't like it that he's holding her, and she leaves. Okay, so this whole image is very it's a powerful image, and it creates a lot of pleasure for the male audience sitting in the cinema, who takes control of the woman within the diegesis. And Malve is saying this, and I have used the quote here. So this is the process of persuasion and participation. So cinema, in other words, is persuading the male viewer to participate in the scene. All right. आपको I have already shown you the scene जो कि शेर लाहौर का है. I think we discussed it already, and I already said that शेर लाहौर was a blockbuster despite a lot of nudity. So was Intiha despite nudity, because Samina Pirzada shot the rape scene, and censor board did not excise all parts of the scene. It may have excised some part here and there, and as I mentioned before, it had excised about 1000 feet from Najma, because it included a very long rape scene between Najma and Shahid, and censor board did cut about 1000 feet from the film, which means almost 20% film was removed by censor board. Any explanation that this scene is needed for the film is never sufficient. So if we look at all these scenes, we can perhaps forever discuss if films focus on consumerism and what kind of wardrobes they are using, if these wardrobes reflect on Islam and society or Pakistani society. So all kind of questions can be created, but elements of visual pleasure and gaze are there, dichotomies in the images are there, and disparities in images are there. And as I said before, that censor board is never consistent, because it changes every 2 years at least. Sometimes government can replace members of a board and appoint new board members even sooner. So that's why society is the same, but board is not the same. So all these images are produced for one society. In old films, they used to remove Pakistani women in bathers from the film. In old films, women were not allowed to wear swimming costumes. Pakistani women were not allowed to wear swimming costumes. But foreigners or Western women could wear swimming costume in a Pakistani film, because the board always said, "Oh, she's not representing our culture; she's representing a foreign culture." And it was hardly considered that the film was produced for the same society, even if a person or a character represented a different culture. The viewers were from Pakistan. It was not sufficient explanation for keeping Pakistani woman in swimming costume in the film, and it wasn't sufficient explanation for removing a Western woman in bather from a Pakistani film. So I think we have discussed most of the points, and I discussed Mollajet even in the last class, that it does begin with a rape scene, and the woman keeps running, and antagonist keeps running after her. So I think we can consider lots of different images that are used for pleasure of male audience. Ji, any questions? यहाँ पे ये सिर्फ ये कह रहा है कि जो ज़ियाउल हक का जो पीरियड है, we can see that he used religion to suppress cultural traditions, because before Zia era, if you were traveling through rural Punjab, you would find Punjabi women wearing long kurtas and dhoti, and when they walked in dhoti, you could see, like part of her leg, because dhoti never covered her legs properly. So when she walked, you could see her leg at least to the level of her, knee, up to that level. So you could actually think about it that after Zia, This Punjabi woman in dhoti kurta also disappeared from many places. I wonder if you can still see this scene in most of the rural Punjab or not. Okay. In the remaining part, it's only talking about the influence of film on society, because here are some images from, like dresses that were actually from films, and then people used to watch films and they wanted to have those dresses. For example, it mentions film Dil Lagi of Babra Sharif, and in Dil Lagi, Babra Sharif was wearing a shirt with 3 stripes, on the dress, and everybody on that particular Eid went to a tailor. These days we buy more from boutiques, but in those days it was fashionable to get your dresses stitched. So people would actually go to a tailor and say कि मुझे बाबरा शरीफ जैसा dress बना दें, or please stitch a dress like Madhuri Dixit's dress in a certain film for me. So people actually, even the tailors knew about films, and the customers would actually demand that they needed a certain style of dress, So these are the films, these are some images from 1970s, and these images are actually showing dresses that were there in one or the other film. Okay. So it only says that women were freer in pre-1979 era. Real woman was freer, and woman in film was traditional like Shamimara or Nilo. And in the post-1979 era, woman in the film was freer, and woman in society was becoming traditional under the influence of Ziaul Haq. So all it says that in pre and post 1979 era, women in the film and in reality moved to opposite directions, right? Woman in the film was traditional in the traditional before 1979 and free after 1979. Woman in real life was freer in pre 1979 era than post 1979 era. और सोसाइटी जो है वो इसी की बेसिस पे डिसाइड करती है, गुड वुमन, बैड वुमन, एंड wronged woman who was attacked or raped, and tokos and logos and tokos, which means father and son, they only try to save them, or the husband or the hero, they try to save them from the rapists or attackers. Duria Kazi thinks that these bold and beautiful women are proud of their bodies. Like Nirma is very proud of her body, and she is physically expressive with men, while majority of Pakistani women will never be expressive with men or so bold or expressive in terms of emotions, right? So because the film and the society demanded they should be traditional, haya or namehram ka word is used to explain like women should maintain honorable status of their bodies. And it only says that society has created these words, behaya or bahaya kisam ke words, for women who are sexually expressive or sexually not expressive, and they use this kind of language or words to pressurize women to behave in a certain way, or to control their mobility, or to control their sexuality. Okay. This last bit only says that on the basis of this kind of images, Pakistani elite keeps on emphasizing that we should make more films and we should promote certain type of women where female sexuality is controlled, and women's sexuality should not be brought into vivid spotlight. Ji. Ji, any questions? Because I think we have more or less finished it. All it says that Pakistani film does not avoids creation of fetish, which means and it evokes castration anxiety. Fetish means कि आप उसमें sexuality के through you create fetish. People, viewer may be interested in the fetish, and phallic distraction causes the anxiety. That is something that he doesn't like. This was the dialogue that Shanimara said. My heart, here. She tells Darpan, I am the same Ismat who you have forgotten, because he loses, I think he loses his memory in the film. And she's trying to remind him or recover him from his condition. So she tells him, I am the same Ismat who you have forgotten. Remember, Yusuf, when we first met, we looked at each other. Your eyes asked a question. My tongue kept on saying, no, no, no. But my heartbeat accepted each one of your invitations, remember? So eventually she is admitting that she fell in love with him at first sight, but she has been denying it all this time. And she says, my tongue kept on expressing no, 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 but my heart kept on saying yes, yes, yes. So basically, this only explains how a Chui Mui girl is different from a bold and beautiful protagonist, and the two women have different kind of strategies for creating pleasure in the film or seducing the male viewer sitting in the cinema. All right. कोई question है पूछ लें, because I think I'm done. I have discussed all the things that are mentioned here, and taboos are created around sexuality. जी कोई questions हैं? Any questions? All right. If no questions, I think it was a long session, and we are done then. I would like it agar aap in future try disagreeing with the content, and sometimes, like we always develop argument by disagreeing with content. So if you can think of something, you should try disagreeing so we can discuss it further. And if you get time, try reading Sadaf's article.
Ma'am, sorry.
जी निम्रा.
मैम मैं ये पूछना चाह रही थी कि when or which topic will we have our assignment for whenever we get one?
अच्छा, हम एक एक्सरसाइज कर सकते हैं. I think what we can do, I would suggest कि select a film scene. We have discussed, I think, 2-3 topics. So by the time we are done with Sadaf, if not now, definitely then we will have an assignment. And if you can find a film scene, we can. I would like you to discuss that scene academically. Academically means that not only write description of the scene and include dialogue in the discussion, but also find literature and add some realities from your everyday experience and discuss how representation is similar to reality or how it is different from reality, and what others
Ma'am,
have
why not
said.
on Twitter?
Ji?
Why we can't have theater in front of movies?
All right. हमें थिएटर की डिस्कशन के लिए फिर हमें कोई सीन्स चाहिए होंगे ना, सो वी डोंट अनलेस वी फाइंड some scenes on YouTube, we can definitely include theater in the discussion. Because we need to describe scenes, we need to discuss dialogues. Uh, Only one student wrote a research proposal for writing the research thesis on theater performances of Alhambra Arts Council, but I think he opted for the project for the final thesis. He did not opt for research. I may have his proposal somewhere, but we can discuss theater, but for discussion we'll need scenes and dialogues. Alishba, which department are you coming from?
Ma'am, TFT.
Okay, all right.
Ma'am, so this movie scene can be anything, or sorry, any movie, or specifically from the movies that we've discussed in our
It can be. It can be any movie. It can be any movie. I suggest at times that you select a new movie, because on old movies you will find, many people may have written something on them. So it's best to do it on a new movie, because it will improve your skills for describing the scene or for discussing the scene. And for assignments of this class, we will need scene discussion. We will not, I said summaries should be short, but scene discussion can be long.
Okay, ma'am, also, some of the movies mentioned do have links online. However, I could only find like one link of Aurat Raj online, and it wasn't it didn't have.
I will share link of a website. If you write Pakistan Film Magazine on Google, you will find a website that's quite old. I think that is about 10 or 15-year-old website. Somebody from some Pakistani from Denmark manages that website. But through that website, you can find links of films as well. So some films are posted online, some are not posted online. It really depends who is posting them. I don't think filmmakers are posting them themselves. I think these might be people from Hall Road who have posted some films online, and they'll be viewed until somebody objects on copyrights.
Okay, yeah, that will be very helpful, ma'am. And if, ma'am, the website does not have it, so are these movies available in the market?
They might be available from shops, like they might be available on Hall Road, because I don't see many shops in every market anymore. Because until I think 10 years back, there were DVD stores all over Lahore. I don't think there are many DVD stores right now, because people were downloading from uTorrent, and Netflix is also there right now. So people are not buying films or DVDs from stores. आपको कौन सा चाहिए link of the films that are mentioned in the article?
I specifically want to watch Aurat Raj.
Aurat Raj, I think it's there on YouTube. I'll try finding it. And
Ma'am, sorry, I'm interrupting you again. I did find it. However, it didn't have voice in it. The movie was available there.
I think that may be a temporary problem sort of thing, क्योंकि I remember कि मैंने इसको YouTube पे भी watch किया था I think 2-3 years back. I watched it online. That was when I was writing the article. मैं ढूंढूंगी. If I find the link, I'll share it with you if I hear voice on it.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, take care.
I have a question.
जी बताइए.
Okay, while you were taking attendance, my internet disconnected, and then I reconnected when you were talking about writing a summary for like movie clips. So can you repeat anything that you said in between?
In fact, Nimra asked when I will give an assignment. I think this course is a bit speedy, so probably I should give an assignment very soon. All I said, what we can do that we can try doing an exercise. Like I said in my papers, you should discuss film scene and dialogue also. So I said we can try doing this exercise because people who are not from TFT, uh, they may have not written descriptions of scene before, you know. They may have not selected dialogues for discussion. I'm sure people who are coming from DLA may have discussed stories and dialogues and before, right? So I wonder. I said in all of the assignments of this class, we will need to discuss scene and dialogue uh, while discussing the story.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, Ji.
Okay.
We are done for today.
Okay, ma'am. Allah Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
ma'am.
Hafiz.
Thank
Good
you.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.